The entertainment world was thrown into complete shock when news broke that Yandy Smith, the beloved reality TV star, was fighting for her life in the ICU. The news spread like wildfire, and fans everywhere were glued to their screens, hoping for a miracle. Doctors were left baffled, unable to understand what was happening to her. Meanwhile, Mendeecees, Yandy's husband, remained by her side, devastated and helpless as medical experts scrambled to figure out what was wrong. Fans expressed their heartbreak while social media buzzed with confusion and concern. The hospital atmosphere was tense, and every passing moment felt like the edge of a breaking point. What went wrong? Was this just a sudden health scare, or was something far more sinister at play behind Yandy's condition? Close family sources revealed some terrifying details, secrets that the public was never supposed to know. And amid all this uncertainty, Mendeecees stood broken, demanding answers as doctors struggled to stabilize his wife's fragile condition. Whispers of a shocking revelation inside the hospital could change everything. Would Yandy survive this, or was this the moment that would alter their lives forever? As the drama unfolded, the scene in the ICU was intense. The steady beeping of the heart monitor filled the cold, sterile air. Machines hummed, IV drips clicked, and nurses and doctors murmured around the hospital bed where Yandy lay motionless. Her skin was pale, her lips dry, and her body unnaturally still. Mendeecees stood frozen at the doorway, struggling to grasp the reality of what was happening. This couldn't be real. Yandy, the strong, unstoppable force who had always held their family together, was now fighting for her life. His heart raced as he took a cautious step forward, his mind unable to process the situation. His wife, the love of his life, was covered in wires, an oxygen mask strapped to her face. Her chest barely moved as it struggled to rise and fall beneath the crisp white hospital sheets. She looked nothing like the vibrant, energetic woman he had kissed goodbye just hours before. "Doctor, tell me what's wrong with her." Mendeecees' voice cracked, barely recognizable, as the distress and fear seeped into every word. The lead physician, an older man with tired eyes and a somber expression, exhaled deeply. "We're still running tests," he said softly. "Her vitals are unstable, and we don't know what's causing it." Mendeecees' stomach dropped. "You don't know?" His voice broke and his fist clenched. "You are a doctor. You're supposed to know. My wife is in there dying, and you're telling me you don't have an answer?" The doctor remained calm, maintaining his professional demeanor. "We've ruled out a heart attack and a stroke, but something is attacking her body. We're waiting on lab results." Mendeecees felt the world spin around him. Just this morning, Yandy had been fine. She was laughing, talking about their children, and taking care of business calls. How could everything have gone so wrong, so quickly? He turned back to her, his heart aching as he gazed at the woman he loved, the woman who had always been his rock through every trial. "Baby, wake up, please," he whispered, reaching out to hold her hand. It was cold, too cold. The lump in his throat grew larger. His wife wasn't waking up. The door suddenly burst open and Yandy's mother, Judy, rushed into the room. The second she saw Yandy in that hospital bed, a gasp escaped her lips. Her hands flew to her mouth. "Oh, Jesus, no, no, no!" Mendeecees turned to her, his face contorted with pain. "She just collapsed out of nowhere. The doctors don't know what's wrong." Judy grabbed his hands, panic flashing in her eyes. "What do you mean they don't know? She was fine this morning. How does someone just collapse and end up in the ICU?" Mendeecees shook his head, his jaw clenched so tightly that it hurt. "I don't know, Ma. But I swear, if something happens to her..." The doctor cleared his throat, his tone professional but filled with urgency. "We're doing everything we can, but right now we need to keep her stable. She's unresponsive, and her oxygen levels are dangerously low." Judy's face twisted in fear. "No, no! This isn't happening! This isn't happening!" Mendeecees wasn't listening to her anymore. His attention was glued to Yandy as another loud alarm blared from one of the machines. His body snapped to attention. "What was that?" he demanded. The doctor's face turned grim. "Her oxygen levels just dropped." The room erupted into chaos. Nurses rushed to the bed, adjusting IVs, checking tubes, and barking orders. One nurse turned to the doctor. Her breathing is unstable. She's crashing. Menny's blood turned to ice. No, 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 fix it. Do something, he shouted, lunging forward, but a nurse blocked him. Sir, you need to step out, the nurse said firmly. I'm not leaving her, Menny roared, his voice shaking with desperation. Another alarm sounded, louder than before, and the doctor's expression tightened. She's going into respiratory distress. We need to intubate her now. Menny's mind raced. What does that mean? What does that mean? His voice cracked, filled with panic. Judy was sobbing uncontrollably now. Oh my God! Oh my God! This can't be happening. The doctor's voice was sharp. We need to get her on a ventilator. Nurses scrambled around, working quickly to stabilize Yandy. Before Menny could react, one of the nurses grabbed his shoulders and shoved him out of the room. The door slammed shut and the room fell silent. Menny stood frozen, his breath ragged, his heart hammering in his chest. Judy clutched his arm. Oh, God. What if she doesn't make it? For the first time in his life, Menny had no answers. He was completely helpless. Outside, in the cold, fluorescent-lit hallway, Menny paced, his hands clasped tightly together as if praying for a miracle. He wasn't just praying, he was pleading. God, please don't take her from me, he whispered under his breath. Inside the ICU, Yandy lay motionless, her body hooked up to more machines than Menny could count. He could hear the faint beeping of the monitors through the glass, a painful reminder that she was still alive, but barely. Doctors rushed in and out, their faces filled with urgency, and their hushed conversations made his spine shiver. Every second that passed felt like an eternity. Judy sat in the waiting area, her hands clasped in prayer, her lips moving silently as she prayed for her daughter. Even she, the strong, unshakable matriarch of the family, looked broken. Baby, you need to sit down, Judy said gently, reaching for Menny's arm. I can't. I won't. I need answers, Menny replied, his voice tight with emotion. His mind raced with thoughts of how just hours ago, Yandy had been fine. She was making plans for their future, laughing and talking about the kids. Now she was fighting for her life, and no one had any answers. Just then, the ICU doors burst open, and Dr. Whitaker, the lead physician, stepped out. His face was grim. Menny's heart nearly stopped. He rushed forward, grabbing the doctor's arm. Tell me something, anything. Is she going to be okay? Dr. Whitaker sighed deeply. She's stable, but critical. Menny's heart sank. What does that even mean? The doctor rubbed the back of his neck, exhaustion written all over his face. It means she's alive, but she's not breathing on her own. The ventilator is keeping her stable, but we still don't know what caused this. Menny staggered back, feeling as if the ground had been ripped from beneath him. Judy let out a choked sob. Lord have mercy. Menny's chest heaved with anger and frustration. You're telling me she just collapsed out of nowhere and you don't know why? Dr. Whitaker hesitated before responding. We're running tests. We suspect it could be toxic exposure. Menny froze. Toxic exposure? You mean like poison? The doctor nodded gravely. We can't confirm yet, but her symptoms are concerning. Sudden respiratory failure, a drastic drop in oxygen levels. It doesn't add up. If someone gave her something, we need to find out what. Menny's blood ran cold. Who would do such a thing? His mind raced. There were plenty of people who didn't like Yandy, who might want to see her gone. But who would take it this far? His hands balled into fists. Run those damn tests, he growled. I need to know who did this. Dr. Whitaker nodded and turned to leave. But before he could say anything else, another alarm blared from the ICU. Nurses shouted, and Menny's heart stopped in his chest. She's crashing! A nurse's voice rang out, filled with panic. Menny felt like his soul was being ripped from his body. No! he screamed, shoving past the doctor, but security guards quickly grabbed him and held him back. "Sir, you can't be in there," one of the guards barked. "Let me go." "That's my wife," Minnie cried, his voice desperate. But it was too late. The doors slammed shut in his face. Through the glass, he saw pure chaos. Nurses rushed around Yandy's bed, doctors shouting instructions, machines beeping wildly. One of the monitors flashed flatline, and Minnie's legs gave out beneath him. "No, no. Yandy, fight!" he pleaded, his voice breaking. Judy collapsed to her knees beside him, sobbing. "Not my baby. Lord, please." The doctors grabbed the paddles and shocked Yandy's body with a violent jolt. Still nothing. Another jolt, and the silence in the room was deafening. Then, after a third attempt, the beeping of the heart monitor began again, slow and steady. "She's back," Dr. Whitaker said, his voice hoarse. "But she's not out of the woods." Minnie's face went white, his breath catching in his throat. "I need to see her." The doctor hesitated, then nodded. Just for a moment. Minnie didn't waste any time. He stepped into the room, the sound of the ventilator filling the otherwise silent space. Yandy looked small and fragile, connected to so many machines, but she was alive. He took her hand and squeezed it gently. "Baby, I'm right here," he whispered. "You scared me to death, but I know you. You're a fighter. You don't back down from anything." He leaned in closer, his voice soft but urgent. "Who did this to you? Tell me. Give me a sign." There was no movement. No response. Just the steady beep of the heart monitor. Minnie swallowed hard. "I swear, when I find out who did this, they're going to regret the day they were born." Then her finger twitched. Minnie froze, his heart pounding in his chest. "Yandy," he whispered. Her eyes fluttered open, but she wasn't looking at him. She was looking past him, at something or someone standing in the doorway. Minnie's blood ran cold. His entire world crumbled when he saw who was standing there. Samantha Wallace,